Convene the meeting. I will start with the pledge.
Are we on, Kate?
Oh.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have the roll call. We have new member, Jack Retrofit. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you.
Drew Martin.
Marty Tarr.
Jim Tyler. Not present. Dale Cook. Next, we have the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion.
Motion by Joey. Here comes Dale Cook. Okay.
Apologize if I'm late. Yes, I am. Minute and a half.
We start.
Okay. So continuing with the roll call, we have
Dale Cook.
and Chairman Jim Tyler. Okay, next, we have the adoption of the agenda for today.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first item is to approve the meeting minutes for the September 27th, 2021 meetings.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Drew moves to approve.
We'll second that.
Jack seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving right along. Public comments. Maybe we should take, say, town manager comments instead.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you. Just like to move forward with that project for the $27,000 at the end of Reed Street. I know it's being sent to the commissioner, so thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next is to begin to review and develop recommendations regarding the town's infrastructure needs to include stormwater management, flooding, and pollution. I believe that stormwater management and pollution, they're all intermingled together. So I want to begin this by reviewing the focus and objectives that were given us by the commissioners. It says the focus is to review and develop recommendations regarding the town's infrastructure needs. These needs may include stormwater management, street maintenance and lighting, and other such items that may be assigned to the commissioners. We suggest prioritization of projects or infrastructure based on need, flooding, and pollution. To me, the inclusion of street maintenance is more of a town hall responsibility, and I'd rather not go in that direction as far as that's concerned, and leave that out of our focus for now. So flooding assessment is dependent upon completion of the GIS phase 1 plan that's was partially implemented this past year, and I got my handy pointer here. Here's a map that was promulgated by the town engineers as a result of what is called the GIS mapping plan and pipe survey. It was initiated by the former manager, Scott Koenig, and has been carried through. Town engineer developed this map of the town from Clayton Street to Rodney. This is like the first phase. They came up with the focus of this first phase as far as pipe surveillance was to look at McKinley Street, Reed Street or Avenue, and Rodney Avenue. As the plan got going, it was deemed that there was a problem here on Bayard, and that was added to the project. Now you see colors on here, color coded. The first that it says the first phase is purple. This was in the gray was the original first items to be areas to be looked at. During the past summer, they did the work on Reed. They televised it, slip lined it, and had the Reed is down here. This is the purple. There was the phase one that was recommended to be lined, and it was done this year. This says next year, but this is started 2020. I think it was it. They worked on it so next year is this year. They did the purple. They needed some more work on to investigate on McKinley, but they did that. How much did they actually do on Bayard?
Yes, so on Reed Street, we relined the piping from Route 1 down, all the way down to the end of the bay, and then up on Swede Street in Bayard, they did from Swedes and Bayard over to Seabreeze, and then from Swedes and Bayard down to where you're pointing right there, down towards Salisbury Street.
Well, that helps to address the flooding issue. And I would say that part of what we want to recommend as we move forward would be to expand the GIS mapping to include Dagsworthy, which wasn't part of this study, but then you have Dickinson, Van Dyke, and Collins would be an extension of the map. And find out what we find out there.
Jim, I have a question. How much of the, and I should know the answer, but I don't, how much of the plan for the stormwater drains matches the stormwater master plan that we have, the major book?
And what book?
The stormwater master plan that that the engineer did for us. What's his name?
Remington.
Hmm?
You mean Remington?
No.
You're not talking about the Center for Inland Bays project.
Yeah, it's been a number of years now that
The storm phase 2 stormwater plan. You're not going to like what I say. That did not really address flooding. It was what they proposed of 40. I might as well pass this out right now. They came up with 40 or so opportunities, and there were nutrient reduction opportunities.
Well, that's because it had to be mixed in with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Federal government.
I put out, this is the opportunities and map that
Thank you.
is part of the report.
Here, I'll pass it.
Thank you.
And we got one for David. We got two, all right. Anyway, if you get to the whole report, it's it's pretty thick. And they immediately, when we had the meeting down at the Center for Human Base, they presented this to us, it was decided to pick one of the opportunities to, as a demonstration, I would say. And that's how we ended up with the little store project.
That's correct.
It removes a certain amount of nitrogen and phosphorus, but the whatever discharge, the water that trickled through the bioretention area went into a storm sewer inlet on right nearby on the highway, which eventually goes to the base. So, and essentially, all of these items remove a certain amount of the nutrients, but by themselves, they do not reduce. They only reduce flooding by whatever happens to stay in the ground.
Right.
If I can say that.
So we don't want to address that now. We just want to address the.
So you should recall the work that was done on subsequently on Reed that ended up in this. It was called the Reed Avenue Retrofit within the this arrangement that went out into the bay with a box culvert and the discharge pipes. That was an effort to reduce flooding by they had these popper valves at the end of the three pipes, which, and Bill knows about this, two of them almost were filled up with sand almost immediately. And there's one, I guess, is still operating to a certain extent, but there's a that was brought up by the Center for the Bays. They found a grant somewhere that they could do this work, and we need more efforts along those lines to control, to address the flooding, which I think will be part of our list of priorities that we come up with to meet our assignment.
So I guess what I'm asking is, or what I'm saying is that I guess we should not right now deal with this, but we want to deal with the drains first, right?
Oh, yeah, I would say flooding,
Right.
drains and stuff, that's going to be the number one priority. Those 40 opportunities will happen when I guess when funds are available, whether the funds are grants or whatever.
I wanted to make sure, I want to clarify something, that we talked about the pipes for the drains filling up the sand. We're talking about the Center for Human Base project, stormwater work.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question to Bill? Was that the 25,000? Was supposed to be used to address that at the end of Reed in the water there?
Yeah, it's actually 26,400. I said approximately 27,000.
Gotcha.
That's to address what Jim's talking about with the sand blocking those pipes out of 3. 2 of them are completely blocked. The flaps are completely disabled right now. So that's why we're having the issues there. We need the money to address that. And then what needs to also happen, so it doesn't happen again, we need to have a quarterly or bi-monthly maintenance done on that to continue discharge of the water out. Either have the county bring their truck in, or Rehoboth will bring their truck in and blow water through those pipes continuously, like every other month, to keep those clear. If we don't, it'll just fill with sand.
Okay.
So do we think that, we have a prioritization of the drainage, right?
That's correct, by color code.
And is there any question about what's next in line and, on down the line?
So what's next based on the color code is the orange on there. So there's the project would be from Salisbury down to Bellevue. And then the other part is on Route 1, and it's from Reed Street down to Rodney Street. Those are based on the engineer's priorities. Those should be done next. The issue with McKinley Street is the gray. Those are completely failed, and those are going to have to be dug up. I believe that's what the engineers have told us. Those where it's gray on McKinley Street are going to have to be completely dug up. They're just not going to be relined. So the orange will be like the purple. They'll just be relined. The pipes will actually be relined with new piping, but the gray is they're going to actually have to dig that up and put all new piping in those areas. So when we go to do McKinley Street, it's going to be a major project.
So I guess I'm wondering what you're looking for from the committee. Are you looking for you to give us an in-depth prioritization of that map? And then how much each one's going to cost and us to approve it or us to suggest approval to the commissioners rather?
I think it would be good that we go ahead and get a price from Remington on the orange, which they say is the next phase, both between Salisbury and Bellevue, and then also between Reed and Rodney Street on Route 1. I could come back with that cost estimate to the committee and see if you want to move forward on it.
And would priority potentially change, I guess, depending on pricing and allocation from orange to gray, because one might be more invasive than the other?
Yeah, so where the purple is up there on the
Sure.
map, that was approximately $230,000 to reline those pipes.
Okay.
So when you start talking about McKinley Street redoing all the pipes,
Sure.
it's gonna be rather expensive.
Okay.
Why are we not addressing McKinley at all? I know it's going to be expensive. It's completely blocked. So why are we not addressing it at all? We keep putting it, oh, it's there, but we're not addressing. I just can't, I don't understand that.
I think it's been evaluated on the map, so we are addressing it. It's just not the priority that the engineers said we should do first. Those conversations took place before I came here 8.5 months ago with the engineers on what would be the priority. And I'm not sure how you came up with that, but
Weren't there some areas that the engineers said they could do the scans on?
that was McKinley Street. They can't put cameras down those pipes to know exactly what's wrong with them, so they think they've completely collapsed.
So I think that the combination of when it had to be done, the cost of it, and how badly damaged all put together was where they got the priorities. If you're asking, I think that's.
I just can't understand why something that's completely blocked is not an issue. I understand the relining but it's completely blocked. That means it is not draining any water at all. And, living in that area, I have seen that it has increasingly gotten worse in terms of how it drains or doesn't. So I don't understand how we continue to just move it on the list.
I think it's up to the committee, however they want to prioritize it. I mean, it's not up to me.
Well, they haven't been able to run a camera completely through. So I would think that SPS needs to provide us with a proposal to unblock, if they have to excavate somewhere. Let's see, where's McKinley here? Have to excavate or they know they could run a camera from here for a ways, from here for a ways, and get stuck. Have to expose the line between those areas, and if it needs to be replaced, replace it. If it's or somehow unplug it.
And then the other pieces on McKinley Street, the second gray area there that runs out to the bay, that of course goes through that wildlife area. Or I don't know if the Lions owns it, whether the town owns that property,
State owns.
or whether the state owns it. Whether we're going to be able to go in there, get approval from the state to go in and dig that up and redo that line.
But on McKinley, you got this part here where it's plugged, but it's a straight inlet right there, the corner of Hayden and McKinley, and then there's a pipe that goes across the street when it's open right there, and I know this goes back like 5 years ago when the committee was first formed, and I went in to look at. But and I was confused because the pipe coming from 30 going this way towards the bay appears to be broken in the top. I thought there was the pipe ended right there. So they're telling us the pipe comes out here. Why not just sever the pipe and look? So you have the same condition on this side you got here.
I can ask Standard Pipe to come down and evaluate from 29 to 30. Says there's an outfall at 59. But again, they'd have to go through that wetland to do that. So we could also have them come down and evaluate from 26 to 27, 27 to 28, and from 28 to 31. If that's what the committee wants me to do, I can do that.
Has the state done any investigation on what they own for their piping? Is that compromised and would need excavation as well? Do we know that?
They own the property, but from what I understand, the town's responsible for the stormwater drains.
Yeah, there's goes back to the there was a letter
Sure.
of agreement about the time the town was formed in 1982.
Sure.
Just exactly what Bill was saying, you know.
Yeah.
Filled up with the pipes. In fact, some of the original, most of these pipes date back to 1968.
Right.
Or that's when the drawings were put together. So probably, let's say between 1968 and 1970, those side street storm drains were installed. That's what we have. No.
Can I suggest one thing then? Maybe the last time, if I remember correctly, Jim and I and a number of people, when I say number of people, the state and pipe maintenance people talked about doing this map and the priority of it. And again, it was what the town could afford at the time and what was the worst situation that we could afford to fix. So that's probably why, if I remember correctly, that's why the priorities were put the way they were. But I think it, maybe if we had the town manager give us his suggested priorities, what's next and how much it would cost and the logic behind it. And the committee, come up with a recommendation to the commissioners. And I think that might be the way to attack it.
Remember, I think we've had this conversation. Remember the conversation, but for some reason besides the cameras, there was like, they gave some rationale why it was kind of great. I don't remember what it was. And some kind of rationale for why it wasn't on the track. I don't know. I don't remember that.
So in all the other ones, they could run cameras down and look at the damage inside, and they could say, all right, we can reline these pipes. The gray ones, like on Rodney Street, McKinley Street, and there at the Peaceful and Bellevue, they weren't able to run cameras all the way through, so they weren't able to give us an evaluation on, I think, the cost. But if that's what you want, I can definitely go find out how much it's going to cost. I'll have them come down and look at the gray areas on McKinley Street, at least from 27 down to 31 down to Hayden. I'm not sure. I could ask them about 30 out to 59, but again, I thought when they went in to try to evaluate those pipes, somebody stopped them from going in because they said it was a natural wetland and that they weren't able to dig in that area. Is that correct?
I don't know that anybody ever asked the state. I do know that it's state property that the state has told the Lions Club that they have authority over. It's sort of like the town and the beach.
Okay.
It's state property, but the town can regulate. So you'd have to contact the Lions and the state to find out about that section. If it's so desired by the committee that the town, that my suggestion is the town set up the priorities and ask us to push it through to the commissioners. It's not our say-so on the matter. It's our recommendations to the commission, including the money.
If you're asking my recommendation, the pipes are completely failed from 27 to 31 on McKinley Street. I'll ask them to give us a cost estimate on that and see how much it'll cost to do that repair. Maybe from 29 to 30 also on McKinley Street. And see what they say about 30 out to 59, the outfall there into the bay.
And we don't want to get caught, we need to approach the state. We don't want to get caught and at the last minute and have the state say, who the hell told you you could go in there in the first place?
Okay.
And then the other question that I think is an interesting one is, what is the cost for them to tell us how damaged the, gray areas are? Because the concern is they say they're too far to repair or even get a camera in. There's probably a cost associated with them to be able to get in to get cameras.
So we've already done that.
Good.
Actually, we've already had them come down and try to do that. So they've already got that evaluated. So I think it's just a matter of asking them, hey, if you had to go in and do the work to make the pipes work again from 27 to 31, how much is that going to cost us and how long will it take? I don't want any work done past May 1st.
And you never know, we might get to, with the money the state is now going to get from the infrastructure fund, we might get them to put some money towards, because it's their property.
And that was a follow-up question I was going to have is, if we're that close to state property line, is there some help that we might be able to get from the state for those issues that we see?
As I understand it, that pipe goes down was pretty much the center of that, I want to call it a swamp.
It's a marsh.
It's a marsh.
Marsh.
Yeah. I apologize, but, and we have to contact them anyway, so we might, if we talk to the right people, Pete and Ernie might get them to say, it's our property, we'll fund that part.
The worst they'll say is no.
That's right.
Okay. Going forward with the flooding, we have, let's see, you got Rodney Street. It's included in that original GIS mapping thing.
Right.
They haven't looked at pipe on Reed on Rodney, have they?
Again, on Rodney Street, it's in gray, so that means they couldn't get their cameras in there to actually do an evaluation. That's why I think that's why they were suggesting that this not be done yet, given the amount of funds that we have. I mean, the projects we did last spring was over $230,000 for those projects. And I think we have about $480,000 right now in infrastructure fund.
It can go quickly too.
Yes. Now, some of the money from the American Rescue Act, we can use for stormwater. The town, based on its population, year-round population, received approximately 215,000. We've gotten 108,000 of that now, and we'll get the other 108,000 in the next 4 to 6 months. But that money can be used for a number of different things, not just for the stormwater. It can be used for safety around the town. For example, our camera system that we have around town, putting in some additional antennas to cover certain areas that aren't covered. And it can also be used for what they call premium pay for our folks that work, the essential folks that work, like our police officers, dispatchers, and other folks that came in during the pandemic and came to work every single day.
What is this fund called?
American Rescue Act. And again, it was based on population, year-round population. So compared to other towns, for example, Ellesmere got approximately $8 million, I believe. But because Dewey doesn't have a year-round population, we're receiving about 215,000.
What's the number have to be for year-round population?
And no, they just base it on what your population is. Yeah, year-round. Yeah, they don't take into consideration we go over 30,000 in the summer.
Got it.
And looking, going forward, we'll probably be looking, we'll have to look at the conditions on Dickinson, Van Dyke, and Collins, because I get a visual of observations on Van Dyke because where I live, I look right down on the street. Oh, and Also, I monitor the tide levels and as Marty knows, because where she lives, that last week in October, we had those significant tides that the one on Friday would approach what was called a major flood stage of which I wasn't here, but apparently it was it was pretty bad. But that would be those streets would be included in the next phase of the GIS mapping. And
What streets was that again?
Hmm?
What streets were they again? Or it'll be included in the next map.
it would be from Rodney down to Collins.
Okay.
Those are have pipes that go out into the bay on all those streets. Dickinson, Van Dyke, and Collins. Just to digress for a moment, I have an appointment during 12:40 for a COVID booster shot at a pharmacy. So I want to keep this conversation going, but I have to for about another 15 minutes or so I can go back home, grab some lunch, and get to the pharmacy. I think I'd like to have us move on to the results of the what's called the Phase 2 Stormwater Planning Grant. We had these 40 or so opportunities that on this long sheet that were where the one on where was it here? Whichever. I can look it up on the map. This is the map that went with started at
Little store and Reed, is that what you're looking for?
yeah, no, I think this is BR, yeah, Reed, BR5. Reed,
Yeah.
yeah, where the grass area into bioretention right there by the little store. That was the one item that was picked up. But we've got all these other items that will work at reducing the pollution into the bay. Some are reasonably priced, others are probably will never get to because of the extreme cost, unless we get some very good grants. The numbers that you see on this copy here, this was some work that I was doing, trying to come up with some priorities for these opportunities a couple of years ago, but then COVID-19 and a couple other things got in the way, and I sort of dropped it. Haven't done anything on it since. So, in a sense, part of our priority plan would be to try to earmark a few of these to address in future years. I would say that pollution should we look at this after we've handled the flooding. Because if you read the full report on each one of these, and it's kind of thick, the amount of nutrients that's reduced, one of these things reduces seems kind of minuscule, in my opinion, because the Little Store project ran somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000, and you eliminate a few pounds of nitrogen and a few pounds of phosphorus. Makes you wonder, But anyway,
Well, Jim, a lot of those suggestions some of it was going to be taken care of during the the reworking of the island. And the, you know, when the state
and-
does,
and-
not this one that's coming up now. But when the state does it, I think it's scheduled for 5 years from now, or 6 years from now. They're
Yeah.
talking about redoing the entire set of island
Yeah,
and the highway itself.
for Jack, bail note, there's a, what's called the Route Highway 1 or SR1 median treatment that we reviewed back in the February or so, something like that. It was it's going to adjust part of the medians from Salisbury to Reed. It's
But Jim, that wasn't going to have anything to do with this.
it's gonna, what they're gonna do, I would say, addresses the PC1 and PC2 and the northern half of PC3. They're taking out the concrete and replacing it with a mulch bed, which,
That's true.
so,
But the overall one, the bigger one, 5 years down the road, was the one that was going to do the entire highway.
well, maybe they're gonna,
Yeah,
that's something I don't know about.
yeah.
But it's good to have you around.
Not then.
Anyway, but there was various levels of estimate of that project work. This was all based on, well, this was issued in the August of 2017. Using those numbers, you had a few projects that were less than $100,000 or on up to going on up, but we have to continue to look at what those projects would cost. And at least that's in the engineer's estimate, and include some of these in our priority scheme.
On the chance, if I can jump in here, on the chance that some or many of these are going to be taken care of when the state comes through and does whatever they're going to do.
It won't do any of the side roads.
But would the money that's earmarked for these things, and I don't know if you can move it, be better spent on flooding issues? That's my thought.
My feeling is that this document doesn't really address flooding at all. It's nutrient reduction. Despite what the grant was about.
Sorry.
But other people feel differently, well, I stand correct.
Is the money still there? Is the grant money still there?
No, it
No,
was the
so there
grant,
is no
to
grant.
create the document.
Okay, so
Was
grant to create for this. Okay.
There's no money left for this, right, sir? I mean, there is no money set aside for this, correct? For this, okay. This is just an estimate on how much it would cost to do the work.
That's an estimate of the problem,
Right.
seriousness of the problem, right? That's just an estimate
Yeah.
of all the problems.
You know, an estimate is 4 years old. You know, we could come up with the priorities and say, well, let's see what this one would cost. You know, then we have to get somebody else involved. Like, see, this is one thing that puzzled me. If we go to try to implement one of these, do we have to go back to CIB and work with them, or do we go to RV&E, the RV&E, yeah, the town engineer, let them work on it? That's a good question.
Well, the only, and I'm not the expert on this, just because I
don't know
was
either.
involved with the discussion of it originally, was we would go, if we would use CIB, Center for Inland Bays, to help us with prioritizing everything, and then they might have grants, because we had no access to the grants, and right now, we still don't have
Yeah.
access to
They
grants,
might-
because we don't have anybody doing it.
That's how some of these things would be funded, through a grant, or maybe some awards from our local representatives. I did, when I was working on this, I learned that Pete and Ernie could, either one, they could contribute up to $50,000 towards a, it's like an earmark. But that's.
So what is your suggestion, Jim, that we do with this list? What would you like us to do with it?
Nothing.
Okay. Then I might make a suggestion that, I don't know if we have to vote or whatever, I might make a suggestion, we either with a consensus or vote to have the town manager or town hall in general, town manager, Jim Dedes, et cetera, and our chair, plus maybe one other committee member, come up with a set of priorities within that map priority, and say what they'd like to do and how much it costs, and have us vote on it at the next meeting, so that we can get it moving, especially the pipe. I don't care who, I certainly don't want to be the other committee member besides the chairman, but I suggest that might be the way to go, because we'll have the town manager and assistant town manager, especially Jim Dedes, have had background in this, or Jim has had background, and they could help with us, help prioritize what definitely to do and why, and have written down why we want it that way, and then vote on it at the next meeting, and then to send it to the commissioner for their thoughts. Do
Is that a motion?
I so move.
I'll second that.
Okay. And
All in
the
favor?
only reason I just want to get it on the move.
Sure. I just have one question. Would the town have enough time to get that pricing in that time of the essence documentation for our next meeting?
Yeah, I think we could definitely get on McKinley Street, if that's what you're looking for, from 27 down to 31.
Yeah.
And from 29 to 30. It depends on working with the Lions Club in the state to find out from 30 down to 59. Who actually owns that, and how much. I can still ask them how much it's going to cost to go into that marsh. We'll have to drain the marsh to do that work.
Right.
There's environmental concerns, I'm sure about
We
that.
also want your recommendation. That's what I said, give your recommendations for priorities within that map.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we provide you guys enough time to be able to do your facts finding, so that when we have our conversation, and we have enough time, and then the commission itself has the time that they need to make the best decision for the town.
Commissioners won't do it until it's presented to them by
Correct.
us.
So as soon as the meeting's done, I'll call my contact at RVE and ask him to give us the cost estimate based when they were down here on 27 through 31 and 29 through 59, and see what they say, and I'll report that back to Jim.
That'd be great.
And let's,
We have a motion on the table. We'd like to call the motion. All in favor?
Could you read the motion again?
well, I wrote down, vote to have town manager Jim Dedes, parentheses, town hall, and chairman plus one of the committee come up with the suggested priorities and cost for discussion and vote at the next meeting.
Of this list?
No, of that map.
Of that map?
And priorities of that. If, what are their priorities, suggested priorities for that map for the flooding? The flooding.
For flooding.
The drains.
So are we want priority on flooding.
Yeah, on the
Correct.
drains,
So
that
as
map.
long as it's clear that it's on flooding.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All in
Oh, it's
favor?
already,
Oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I'm going to have to call a halt to the meeting now, so I can get to my rest of my problems, what I have to do to become get my booster shot. So I think we will have some member, like call for member comments now.
I'll say one quick thing from our experience with the work that CIB did on Reed Avenue. Which again, I think you're making a great point that flooding should be the priority, not nutrient reduction. There's a lot of work. They did a nice job on what, but their main thing on the end of Reed Avenue was nutrient reduction. There was no doubt about that. I know they put the backflow valves in there, but that wasn't the number one priority. And they always made that fairly clear that that wasn't the number one priority. And they actually even were not, they weren't excited about building a bigger berm to at least stop the flooding from coming over as well. So I think it is very important when you look at a lot of these to separate this from this.
Correct.
And really work towards the flooding.
And the motion does it. Motion.
Yes, yeah, it just a lot of money spent on something that's really not. I see the point of it. I see the value in it, but it's not addressing the urgent demand or the urgent need we have in the town right now. That's for sure. And hopefully, this money that they're going to spend at the end of Reed is really going to help address those valves. I really hope that really helps. Yeah, that would be nice.
I'd like to weigh in. I've been a member of the committee for a while and have been in discussions with CIB for several of those years. And I know they talked about wanting to do something to help the marsh at the bay end because of the erosion. It has continued to erode. And so the marsh is not as effective at doing its job as it once was because it's lost so much frontage. So, CIB at some point, they have aerial pictures that show the actual erosion. They had wanted to do something. So that, I agree. These are all important things. If we had endless amounts of money, great. But I think our energy and our funds need to go into the flooding consideration. That's got to be our priority. And then these other things. And, if you're tearing up pavement, then put the impervious down when you replace it. But don't tear it up to do that because that's expensive.
I totally agree. My family's been in this town for a long time, and generation after generation, we've watched this town shape into what it is today. And our goal is to continue that so that generations long after us will be able to enjoy this town. So, flooding is a major issue that we face, and it will always be something that we face. So we should put our energy into stuff or items and things that are going to shape our future, and that is flooding.
With the committee's permission, from now on, when we have these meetings, I will ensure that somebody from Remington is here, that we can Zoom them in for them and bring them in when you have a question about something.
Okay.
In the future, if that's what you'd like, I could have them here and then we could not bring them into the meeting until you're ready.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
because we can do that. And looking at all this today and the questions you're asking me, I should have had them online, but I will have them here for the next
I really
meeting.
appreciate that, Bill.
Yeah.
Good. David, you got anything more to say?
No.
Okay. So I think we can look at it when Bill gets back to us some information, then we'll schedule our next meeting. So can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Jack moves.
I second.
Marty seconds. All in favor?
Aye.